Hello and a very warm welcome to you all. I'm Sophie Devonshire and I'm the Chief Executive of the Marketing Society. I'm loving being part of this incredible global network of progressive marketing leaders and supporting our purpose, which is to empower brave leadership in marketing. When we come together as a community, when we connect, when we have conversations, it helps us all to be braver, to be more brilliant at what we do. And we can help each other do well in our careers and in society, and do good in our businesses and in the world. We can share our stories and our perspectives and our experiences from our roles in marketing, which supports each other and helps unlock ideas. We've teamed up today with our friends at LANDOR Fitch for a new mini-series to do exactly that, to answer and explore some of the critical questions that surround sustainability. Now, when we refer to sustainability today, we are talking about the three pillars: the economy, society, and the environment, known more simply as people, profit, and planet. And of course, this session isn't about having all the answers on this very, very complicated subject. The perfect sustainability model is something that few brands can actually get to that position right now. But it is about making sure we have a conversation about sustainability to make sure that it is something that stays front of mind for us, and to create a forum and a group of us together where we can learn from each other, share best practice, insights and tips to help accelerate and support your community wherever you are on this journey. The format for today, so I'm going to introduce our speakers today, who are fantastic, and then I'm going to hand over to the brilliant Luke Speisser for a 15-minute introduction to LANDOR Fitch's position on sustainability and sharing some thoughts around that. I'll then welcome all our contributors back on screen and we'll have a little bit of a discussion, a conversation together. And there will be plenty of opportunities for you to ask questions of the people who are here today. So please use the Q&A function that is below on your Zoom screen to get all your questions out there and to share your thoughts. We really love interactivity with these events. And I know there's quite a few of you dialing in from various places around the world today from the Marketing Society. It would be great if you would like to be as interactive as possible and comment on chat as we go. The chat function below is there. How about just coming on now if you're there, to say hello, tell me who you are and where you're dialing in from. And perhaps you can tell me the answer to a question. Let's think about something that's happening right now. How are you all feeling about this week's important news about a new vaccine? Please come into chat. Tell me your name, where you're dialing in from, and how you feel. One word or one phrase to describe how you're feeling about the new vaccine. It's big news for everybody, big news globally. It's great to see people dialing in. Hello, Dominic. How are you feeling about the vaccine? Dominic, what's your thoughts on it? Excited. It is surprisingly fast news, isn't it? And yes, indeed, long overdue. Mark, great to see you, Mark. Thank the Lord. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Please keep chatting, telling us what you think, adding to the conversation as we go. It really helps and it's really interesting to see your perspective. So use that chat function, use the Q&A function to question everybody. Yes, great news, Kamal. Good to see so many people dialing in from Dubai and other places. So, thank you everybody for joining us today for this really interesting conversation. And now I would like to introduce our speakers for today. I'd like to welcome them onto the virtual stage and ask them to introduce themselves. First of all, Antony Lawrence. Antony, are you there?
Yes, hello, I'm here, all the way from my bedroom in Dubai. I'm the Executive Marketing Director at Dubai Holding, or I should say Holding Dubai. That's what our new objective is, to try and look after the future of Dubai.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining us, Antony. And Sue Hubner, are you there, Sue?
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone. I am Sue Hubner, and I am the Category Director for Arla Foods in the Middle East and North Africa.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Sue. It's going to be a great discussion. And then last but not least, I'd like to introduce Luke Speisser. Luke, come in, tell us how you are, and let's hear a little bit more from you.
Hello, everyone. I feel good also because of the vaccine. So I joined to everyone to say that's really great news to wake up with. So I'm Luke Speisser, and I'm the Global Chief Innovation Officer at LANDOR FITCH.
Brilliant. And Luke, you've got some thoughts for us today, haven't you, on sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. I have the difficult touch. So sorry, I'm not multitasking able. So I'm just going to share my screen before I speak to you. And there we go. Normally you should see it.
There we go. Everybody should be able to see that. Brilliant.
So you're seeing it. All right. So I've got the difficult task, challenging task, let's say, to take you through in 15 minutes, max, how to shift the paradigm from compliance to business value through brand-led sustainability. So that's already part of the answer, right? So it's going to be really top line, but I'm going to start right away because we've got a lot to share, and I love to have a great discussion with you all. So I'm going to just take you through a couple of questions on why sustainability, then look at the imperative when it comes to sustainability, stand out by doing good. And then most importantly, what do we mean by good brands, and how can you build good brands? So it's not a surprise, you all know that, right? Big challenges to sustainability, customers want more, and the more we speak, the more they want, right? And they want more also from not only governments, but most importantly from brands. There are also friends that are regulators, right? And they're pushing hard the agenda on sustainability. And in your region, which is really impressive, there is a very strong drive at national level for greater sustainability, which is amazing because there is a very, very strong awareness and a strong push from the governments on this. More globally, we now, and everybody is aware that the world's biggest problems are completely interconnected. And when we look at the region, it's the same. It's the case as well, right? But that's our Dubai office who did an amazing Good Squad study on the region, and basically the different challenges and the different problems are tackled and prioritized differently depending on the type of country and the economic situation that you're in. So, as Sophie was saying in the introduction, sustainability is not just green, and that's really important. Because I still see people, even sometimes in our industry, that limitate sustainability degree. No, it's three things, and as you say, it's people, it's planet, and it's profit, and that's very critical. And it's my whole point. It has to be profitable as well, right? And that's the whole objective of brand-led sustainability. So COVID-19 and climate change, especially COVID-19, just one word to keep in mind on what that has done to sustainability in general. It has just accelerated the need for more sustainability, quicker, and also much more long-term thinking. If you look at consumers, just one number, and I've got the screen in my, so I'm going to just, 62%, look at this number. That's a recent one. 62% of global consumers do not think their country will make it through the COVID-19 crisis without brands playing a critical role in the fight against the virus. That's a very impressive number. But another impressive number is in your region, 93% of people, and I'm not only talking about young people, right, which is the mass majority of people pushing also for sustainability. 93% of people feel businesses should take more responsibility to ensure that sustainability products are available. So as a nutshell, brands can't be the problem, they must be part of the solution, because there is a lot of expectation towards brands. Now, as a consequence of all that, right, companies will need to invest more. So there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of money invested. On the good side of things, and let's look at the glass half full, sustainability, it's established, and that's the WPP sustainability report, but there are other reports confirming that. It's the biggest business opportunity for any company for the years to come. And also, and that's measured as well, the brands that put sustainability at the heart witness by far faster growth. So good brands, right, as we call them, are good business, but there is a but. And the but is that most of the companies and most of the brands have engaged and jumped into what we call a green sea of sameness in the sustainability space. Look at all those pledges. They're all great. Don't get me wrong. It's all great that companies are committing to those pledges and delivering upon them. But look at reducing materials, right? Unilever has committed to it, P&G, Danone, Coca. So that's all great, but that raises the standards. So that raises relevance. What about differentiation? So in that race for compliance, and it's a true race, everyone's making all the same pledges, which are all great, again, but no one is standing out. And that's the problem. And the overlooked piece in sustainability so far is brand. And we all know that brand drives, on top of relevance, drives differentiation, and it drives change. And most importantly, it drives return of investment. So as a conclusion, to shift the paradigm from compliance to business value, sustainability must therefore be brand-led, right? So simple to say, so how do we do that? Actually, we've created a framework at LANDOR FITCH, which, and the good news, right, is that wherever you are on your sustainability journey, you can build your brand to be good. So there is no right or wrong, there is no sustainable native, not sustainable native. Anyone, whatever the situation, can engage in that sustainability journey and get some return from it. So we created that framework, sustainability to access, sustainability central to business strategy, sustainability central to brand. And basically, wherever you are, you can navigate. And we've basically identified 4 different types of good brands to be created. I'm going to take you through those. So the first way to develop a good brand is to transform existing brands, heritage brands, brands who've been there for quite a while, brands we love, right? To make them future-proof, and that's possible. So, for instance, remember BP. BP, we actually pioneered at LANDOR FITCH brand-led sustainability when we put sustainability at the heart of the BP brand 20 years ago. And again, this was not just putting green in the logo, right? This was when BP CEO at the time, Lord Brown, engaged the whole company into shifting beyond petroleum. It was a very courageous shift that hugely benefited to BP, despite, of course, some bump in the road, but it was hugely beneficial. We also continuing to helping BP reimagine energy because this is a journey, right? This is not from one day to another. We also helped the International Volleyball Federation to take, and I'm putting that here, their first step in sustainability by creating an ownable brand-led sustainability program. It's called GoodNet, and it's an upcycled program that basically takes fishing nets that are out of the oceans and transforms them into volleyball nets. And we created a brand which is called GoodNet. Very simple, very ownable for a volleyball federation next to the beach, right? And it was launched in 2019. So this is not 10 years ago. So it's time to launch whenever you want. It's never too late. And in a few weeks, the results were spectacular. It engaged, which is critical when you do sustainability, the whole volleyball community. You have to start to rally your people, right? And that was massive. They suddenly had a program, and that program echoed within the International Olympic Committee, but also the United Nations adopted GoodNet as part of the Clean Seas program. So massive results when you do brand-led sustainability, and you don't need to do things for a long time. You can do it right away if you do it right. Another way also for great companies, right, and companies that have not necessarily been sustainable native and that have been around for quite a while, to basically also to enhance, and to do stuff and get, not only boost their reputation, but also boost their business through sustainability, is to create sustainable native brands and enhancing their portfolio by doing so. So that's what we've did for Coty, the beauty company, and we created WeDo from scratch, right? From zero to market in 18 months. That's quite fast. And everything we do actually is an act of kindness, right? So it's basically from its packaging made entirely of recyclable materials, its products that are both vegan, cruelty-free, but also websites that runs with energy. And even if you look at that, even the shampoos for the hairdresser are not only gentle for their clients, customers' heads, but they're also gentle for the hairdresser's hands. So that was a 124 index versus 100 objective right after the launch. And it was launched in Sweden, which is, believe me, the torture market for sustainability. So huge success and great growth. We also, in the region, inventing and reinventing sustainability as the ultimate luxury for the Public Investment Fund in Saudi with Amala. That's the second. The third is helping startups to accelerate their impact with brands that are as innovative as their business models. So we've created a startup which has created a fund that is exclusively investing in good businesses, so also called triple bottom line businesses, planet, people, profit, right? And we created a brand as innovative, right, and sustainable as their business. As you know, can see on the movie, the brand only exists on the companies they're supporting by recycling all the papers, catalogs, and even products. Last but not least, we are inventing our own brands at LANDOR Fitch and reversing the marketing model, starting by the brand first. And we're creating sustainable native brands like this one, and we trademark them. It's a brand called Less, and it's basically a sustainable native business model and brand, which has been created in 2014. And it enables to make great and premium wine, organic wine, accessible to all. How? By reducing its selling price, but also increasing the retailer's margin by just doing one thing, selling it in bulk. And you can see the whole ecosystem doing that. So that's it. That's the 4 different good brands that anyone can create. So how do we build good brands? We actually put sustainability at the heart of everything we do. We are a holistic, branding company. We're doing quite a whole bunch of things. And basically we're putting sustainability everywhere, from brand strategy to brand performance. But we've also augmented our core approach with what we call a suite of sustainability-focused good offers. And they range from good activities, from consulting activities, brand-led always, right, to good packs, to good spaces, etc., you name it. And it really goes around the whole circle. One thing I wanted to really stress is to really achieve that shift from compliance to business value. It's really important that everyone finds their focus. And so we've created a tool which is called Good Activities, which is analytics driven. So it's a bunch of geeks at LANDOR Fitch who created that, right? Finance, numbers, all that stuff. We just gave them a brief. And basically, we can now, any company, any brand, look at the 17 SDGs and model out, depending on the brand purpose, the brand positioning, you name it, right? The culture, the credibility, the supply chain, and basically say which within the SDGs you can rightfully own and champion and focus on. Once we've done that, we can look at current activities or create new ones and look at the ones that increase what we call the brand asset score, meaning, when you brand led, which are the actions that are really building on your brand and your purpose. And last but not least, and that's the beauty of it, we can project gross profit increase and look at scenarios, no change or, embedding brand-led sustainability, and look at what it means from an incremental gross profit. An example I love, a WPP story, is Tommy Hilfiger. They were a brand of the 80s, standing for the American dream, but you see the American dream in the 80s was being rich and living in the Hamptons, right? And that was a little bit restrictive. And so they completely changed with WPP the positioning and really finding the American dream around radical inclusivity. And when you've got that, and when you look at the 17 SDGs, again, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean, if you focus on one that you don't care about the others, you have to improve on all of them. But when you're a fashion brand, probably will never, at least in short term, be the champion of zero waste, right? It's too complex short term. So they, looking at the purpose, were focusing on number 10, reducing inequalities. And then looking at their activities, they had tons of them. They spotted a jewel, which was the adaptive range, which was a small range for disabled people, and they fleshed it out completely, created 7 patented innovations to enable every disabled people, regardless of their handicap, to really dress fashionably and easily. And they pushed it further. They created a whole e-commerce ecosystem that went with it, using Alexa, which enables every disabled person now to shop online clothes that are made for them. Business results, spectacular. I can't share them with them, but believe me, they are. And the reputation, even not descriptive, as it boosted the reputation. So in a nutshell, 5 things. Sustainability is an imperative, and it's not just green, and you know that, of course, but it's important to tell it to everyone or people, everyone. Second, sustainability, you know, can be profitable if you look at it as an opportunity to innovate and not a constraint. Don't jump into the sea of sameness, especially, you know, if you've not started, you know, you can start complying, but, you know, there is an opportunity in your region to leapfrog, like Arla does, for instance. Let your brand guide to focus and stand out. And of course, the way to shift that paradigm is to embrace brand-led sustainability and grow your business by doing good. Over to you, Sophie.
Thank you, Luc. Wow, that was so interesting, seeing all that together. What I loved about that as well is you reinforced for us the absolute need for marketers to look at this as a point of urgency. You know, things are moving very fast. This is suddenly something that we need to look at urgently, but it also that it is a marketer's responsibility, because to make it brand-led makes it consumer relevant and gives it that opportunity to stand out. But I think we're all looking for shortcuts or to move faster, and to have that framework, and the way in which you gave us that framework, I think will help everybody just think through, well, how do we make those steps, and what can we do? And I just love hearing the stories of how other people have done it. I think some great examples in there as well. And talking of hearing how other people are doing it, what we've got today is we've got Sue and Antony, who are going to share with us some very personal perspectives on the journey that they've been going through as part of their role. So Sue, perhaps we could start with you. Would you mind joining us and telling us a little bit about how this makes you feel, and what's been happening for you on your sustainability journey and the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, how it makes me feel, that is a good question. I think, you know, excited and daunted at the same time, I guess, like a lot of people who start to look at sustainability, both the opportunities and the challenges within that. But I guess as marketeers, we're here to kind of have a point of view about the future, and to shape the future. And I think it's becoming increasingly difficult to ignore sustainability. It's not something we can walk away from, either at corporate or brand level. So I think that's really important. I mean, my background is 17 years at Unilever and now at Arla Foods. And I think the context of that has been, you know, different and similar. Unilever was a company that quite early on made statements under Paul Pullman to kind of make this quite a genuine belief-driven mission. And that was cascaded into the organization through targets, and very, very focused targets, and a clear, you know, the belief was actually worked through into this has to be delivered now in reality. And I think that was a really interesting context, because I think at the time there wasn't so many examples before that of success. So there was a lot of kind of work done, which was based on the belief really that this would work. And this was to include brands that I worked on Lifebuoy, on Dove, you know, purpose-driven brands really, who all chose an area. And I think, as Lucas said, what's really, really important for brands versus corporate is that brands find an area that they can really own, where they are relevant and credible. That is the most important criteria. Versus, I think corporates, you know, they need to deal with the big issues that the industry they're in are creating, and they can't walk away from that. So it's interesting, Luc's examples were a bit spread between kind of corporate and brand, and I thought the corporate context is possibly the area where more sameness happens, because they need to deal with the big issues, but brands have the freedom to pick an issue like the nets on the volleyball, you know, where they really are relevant and credible. And I think on Arla Foods, we are on a journey, I would say. Our corporate journey is well on its way. We are a farmer-owned cooperative. We are, I think, on a corporate level, you know, I would say leading some of the key issues. We're already 2 times better than the industry on CO2 emissions. So we are obviously proud of that. But equally, we really understand there's a hell of a long way to go still. And I think at brand level, we are just starting to define the journey. So we're at a very different level than Unilever, where I think the corporate focus came first, and now we're really working it into brands, and we are, you know, on brands like Lurpak, Arla Organic, Puck in the region. We are now looking at how do we now do this in a way that's credible and relevant.
But these aren't things that can be done just quickly, automatically, or half-heartedly. I mean, they need thought and time and how it fits with the strategy, and to get it to be as relevant as possible. This is not an easy tick box for anybody, is it? And that's what it needs, a little bit of thought and the hard work. But I think it's interesting to see you talk about the examples from elsewhere, and more and more we're seeing that there are examples of success, and that we can learn from each other and be encouraged that people are moving in the same direction, even if at different speeds. And Antony, how about you? How do you feel about all this and where you are with the sustainability journey? Is it something that you are feeling that it's easy to look at?
Yeah, well, I think you know, as previously been mentioned by Luke and Sue, I mean, I think the whole COVID thing has really brought sustainability to the fore. I think more from a personal perspective than anything, because I think for a brand to, you know, as you can greenwash people, you can have great offers on your table about sustainability, but you've got to get people to listen. You've got to get people to act. I mean, I'm married to a Swede, a very lovely lady. And where we live in Sweden, when we go home for our holidays, which we haven't been able to do for this last year, you know, they only empty our bins once every 2 weeks. You know, we recycle everything. It's a personal journey to sort of go to the compost heap every day with all our leftovers. Yet nothing like that really truly happens, or has been happening until now, I think, where I've been talking to farmers, believe it or not, over the last 6 months. I've been talking to beekeepers. All of these things have all have come out of where we previously had land banks for sort of real estate. We've been looking to see where we can actually reappropriate things. I mean, we've got sort of 3 key areas behind sort of Dubai Holding. One is, you know, obviously the environment, and to Luke's point, you know, where can we go differently? I think the fact that we actually rehabilitated and released 196 turtles that were sort of washed up on our beaches this year, that are sort of ironically housed at the most luxurious hotel in the world, the Burj Al Arab, behind the sort of closed doors there, is testament to that. But also that, you know, we've got a strategy now from a community perspective to support local farmers, SMEs in our sort of business districts, you know, trying to buy local if we can, because I think Dubai has always made a mistake in the past of sort of bringing in experts from around the world. Now, I think Dubai's future lies with innovation and trying to create the expertise locally as well. And that goes with sustainability as well, because as I say, we can grow amazing produce here. We can actually, as I say, the honey is next. I tasted it yesterday. It's amazing. But yeah, going back to you know, things like farming, etc. We've now got a 50-kilometer rule for our restaurants, which means no food can be brought in from more than 50 kilometers away from our restaurants, unless it's something very specific. So obviously there's always an exception to the rule, and things are in season. But now more than ever, we're trying to sort of use this local idea as well to actually sort of support, as I say, the local farmers, etc. And I think, you know, it rained yesterday in Dubai, which is fantastic. You know, we're all getting used to climate change, but I think we're getting to use you know, water more efficiently in things like sort of you know, sustainable farming. One of the farms I went to visit just recently only uses 1 minute of water a day, but can produce enough produce to sort of, you know, feed sort of 30 restaurants, which is incredible. But I say, going back to Dubai Holding, you know, we're very much into well-being, the community, I say the environment as well. But we actually get led, I think Luke was referring to it earlier, by, you know, Dubai itself has very strong environmental sort of guidelines and where we're trying to head with this. So we're supporting that because obviously we're owned by the same person that rules the country. So we like to fall into place with his thoughts and ideas. But the country is still, you know, it's 49 years old this year. Our company is only 15 years old. So we lack that sort of, you know, we can do anything. We can actually think out of the box. We can actually instigate ideas very quickly here. So we don't have that legacy that some companies have around the world, where they have to sort of have a team of people have a discussion about this, and sort of months and months of bureaucracy go on until they actually decide to go forward with something. We can make these decisions very fast, which is great. And I think that's something that Dubai has got an ambition for, is to make changes. And I think to respect, you know, that the globe is you know, environmentally challenged right now, but we very much want to, you know, do something about it. So things like solar, we've invested a lot of money in solar. If you come to our headquarters, you know, you park under solar panels that create electricity for our offices. The recycling that goes on in water, and you mentioned single-use plastic. I mean, we've eradicated that from all our restaurants and all our sort of headquarter buildings now. But you know, they're just touches. We have to go a lot deeper, and as you say, form some very strategic sort of guidelines for what we want to do in the future. But the ambition is definitely there. I think there's a lot of education to do, especially with, you know, the younger generation that are coming through now. I encourage everyone to watch David Attenborough's program, you know, on the future and what we've done to the planet in his 90 years on the planet. And I think that we now have you know, we have to do something about it, and our children are at stake. So Dubai Holding has, you know, for the good of tomorrow as its tagline. So we have to really live and breathe that tagline to make sure that we deliver on those promises and do something about it. But as I say, the ambition is there. And I think we have a number of people in the business. We don't have anybody full-time on sustainability. We have a lot of passionate people. And I think if you've got someone with passion to start with, then that's how you can make differences. You've really got to believe in it yourself before you can actually get others to be advocates for the same thing. But there's definitely a lot going on. And I think, you know, as we get back and 2020 are behind us, I think we can all go forward with this lesson learned and do something good, both for the planet, but also, you know, as Luke says, it'll definitely be involving profit, hopefully one day. But I think the focus to start with has to be on getting these key sustainability initiatives in place, and then we see the profit later down the line. But I don't think the whole direction is about profit right now. It's got to be about making those changes first and having a key strategy in place that we can actually measure and be measured by as well. So there's a bit of an introduction.
That's really interesting, Antony. I mean, so many points in there. I think there's an interesting juxtaposition there in terms of the global and the local for all of us. So this point that, you know, one of the things that I love about our society is that, of course, we're a global network, and, you know, taking ideas from Sweden or from somewhere else and being able to just speed things up by learning globally is great. But also making sure that, and I think a lot of us are seeing this more now with COVID, that our community and our local country is supported and everything's happened. And one of the things, I mean, I lived in Dubai for a while, and one of the things I always love about it as a place is its ability to make things happen fast. And, you know, some of those examples in there are perfect in terms of showing that the innovation that we need. This is not just, sustainability is not something where it's a lot of people sitting around talking and feeling good about it all. It has got to be linked to the brand and actual innovations and initiatives, and to have a culture in a company that makes those things happen fast, and a culture in a country that is prepared to take perspectives from elsewhere, but also make sure that on the ground you've got the expertise that's needed. I think that feels like a really exciting time for Dubai, and some great examples in there. But I think, listening to you both, I mean, one of the challenges I know that a lot of marketing leaders face, particularly after this year of all years, this incredibly hard year for many businesses, is that the challenge when people want to talk about profit versus purpose, and is there a clash there, and is this about good business? Luke, you've talked a little bit about this in your introduction, but I know that marketers they're faced with so many different choices about what they do, what they focus on. Why do you think, in your experience, is it good for companies to put sustainability at the heart of their agenda? And how can this benefit them profitably, not just tomorrow and for the long term, as Antony said, but is there a question there as well in terms of the business and good business?
Well, I think, you know, as I said in the introduction, wherever you are on your sustainability journey, you can you know, use your brand to do good. And I believe, right, well, we've done it, make profit quite quickly. Because if you focus, if we take, you know, take the GoodNet example, right? The GoodNet example, typically what many organizations do, they would say, okay, we're going to look at the SDGs, right? So and we're going to focus, oh, even not focus, let's do something about plastic pollution, right? And so we do something about plastic pollution. Then we do something about social, because we need to do, then we do something about inclusion and diversity. What we did, so basically you start from the 17 SDGs and you say, we need to do stuff, right? The other way, and the way we recommend to start with, is you start with your brand, right? Your purpose, right? Start by having one, right? But most of the companies have now one, right? You know, Antony, so you're strong purpose driven, you know, companies, which is great. But when you start with that, and that's what we did for the Volleyball Federation, right? We basically look at something that the brand was all about, celebrating what volleyball was made of. And that was a driving to inspire us to look at what we call opportunity mapping, and then say, what are the problems in the world that could fit with a brand? Not only with a sport, right? And that's how we found GoodNet. And so this is not just doing something. Typically, that organization could have done, I'm supporting ghost fishing, right? Which is an NGO. Box ticks. We created a brand, and that's the big difference, which enabled a sport that was not, you know, a federation that is nowhere on sustainability to suddenly be famous in a few weeks' time and engage the whole worldwide community. That's what we mean. We can go fast. We can go fast if you do it the right way.
And actually, I think that the purpose and your brand, they act as a filter and a foundation to help speed up decision making and
absolutely. Springboard, you name it. Absolutely. Right.
I mean, Sue, how did you, when you're thinking about all the business pressures that one faces as a marketing leader, I mean, everyone's so busy. How do you work around other business pressures in order to make sure you're prioritizing sustainability agenda? Is that something you've found easy to do?
No, it's definitely not easy to do, because the problem with sustainability is it can become a bit of lip service, right? So to do it properly, it has to be integral to your brand, and it's also something that you can't just do a hero communication film about. It's something you do. So it is definitely not easy to prioritize. I think also if sustainability came for free, we'd all be doing it, right? So the reality is sustainability comes at a cost, usually. Sometimes significant. It always comes with change, and sometimes significant change at great scale in organizations about sourcing responsibly, packaging materials, capex investment in dairies or factories. And it also does come with a level of risk, because whilst I agree, Luke, that there are many, many more examples now how this, you know, is good business. You know, when you are presenting a business case for an investment, for capex or whatever, you know, you do still have to, I mean, cost always has to be made up by increased growth or a higher price, right? So you have to show the business, I can actually charge a higher price for this because consumers are willing to pay for the fact that they are doing good with us together, or you have to take a cut in margin. But then usually, you know, you need to make that up through increased growth, because most of us work for either shareholder companies or, in our case, farmer owned, and they're not really interested in the opposite. So I think there are things you have to work around. And I think my key thing is that you have to be driven by purpose and a real belief that this can be done, because there are big obstacles sometimes, and big obstacles are only overcome when you're really driven by a purpose. And I think the way you build purpose in is by starting, as Luke said, building it into the brand. So if sustainability is in your brand statement, it's written in there, similar to what Antony was saying, you know, they make a promise to the world about what their company is about. You have to live up to that, right? It does create a very good ground to prioritize, because if you've made that statement, you've made that promise in your brand or in your corporate brand, then by definition you have to now go and find ways to do it. So I would say start with that and find something that you can pick, like Luke said, that is very relevant for your brand and very credible, and stick with that, make it ownable. So don't, you know, jump around, I'll do this for a bit, and this is not activities that drive this, it is purpose and belief, basically.
And if you've got that framework, again, it's not about a personal, I believe this is right. It's in line with what the company has agreed, and you've got that there to fall back on. And Antony, you talked a bit in your introduction. You talked about measuring things, and of course, you know, we treasure what we measure. So it's so important to get that right. And then the measurements obviously build on Sue's point, which is it isn't just what you say, it's what you do. How have you managed to set the right goals for this? Are the things you've done with, you know, long-term sustainability plans, are the goals for improvement for you?
Well, we put a few things into place. I mean, we obviously things like, you know, reducing the amount of paper, things that you can very easily measure, and you know, taking plastic out of the organization. I think what you can only measure in terms of you know, emotion, really, sort of your brand sort of awareness and things that come out of that. We've now changed our sort of research. You know, we measure the brand and sort of what people think about it and things like this every year. But now there needs to be, you know, we're asking new questions about how sustainable we are, etc. And, you know, do people see us as a sustainable brand and this sort of thing. So I think that's an important area. Because there isn't really, I mean, yes, you can do this thing called materiality, where you measure and sort of see what the financial implications are of a sustainability strategy within the company, and having some sort of consistent measures that you can use. But most of that is you know, a deeper dive that we haven't really done yet. But we've just chosen a few key areas. But one thing I just also wanted to highlight on top of what you were just talking to Sue about. I think one of the things that's come out of sustainability for me, or sorry, come out of COVID and the sustainability agenda, is that there's been a lot more cooperation. And I think whereas sustainability used to be something that you know was a little silo of its own within the company, oh, go and ask the guys in sustainability about this sort of thing, they know about that. Because it's become such a universal agenda now, I think everyone's talking about it. And so departments are cross-fertilizing with each other, and even businesses are actually talking to each other as well. And I think it's a bit like, I mean, take it back to the 1960s, sort of, you know, the space race. Because sustainability is now such a big issue, I think more and more people will come up with inventive and innovative solutions to where we should be going with this. And I think that, to Sue's point, you know, yes, we've got to look at the bottom line, and yes, we've got to, you know, we've got shareholders to consider, but I think they'll also be feeding backwards. So it's a two-way conversation, or even a three-way conversation. You know, people out there are going to, like Luke said, they've come up with their own products that you know, they can put back into the market as well. So I think people are going to be much more inventive, and therefore sustainability will benefit from this conversation that's going on out there at the moment.
I think the collaboration point is really interesting. Yes, certainly internally, but just you know, we're smarter when we come together and when we can share those ideas and work together on these big urgent issues. Absolutely. And Luke, I mean, have you seen, just going back to this question about measurements, are there ways in which you can effectively measure the success of sustainability?
Yes, well, we acknowledge the fact because we have, you know, we've been discussing quite a while now with chief sustainability officers, CEOs, and of course, and Sue's point, you know, about you need to make the business case. Of course, you know, it's not that easy. And so that's, you know, when I took my role focused on sustainability, you know, 1 year ago, I really went to our inside analytics department, who are people who invent things, right? And say, I want something to help our clients, to go to their boards and say, we should focus on this, we should do that, and this will potentially, you know, bring us that amount of profit. So that's what we've created. So it's a completely new thing, right? And I can't talk more about it because we're rolling it out with some of the clients already. And I must say it's something that people embrace quite rightfully. But let me talk about profit in a also much more simple way as well, because that's an approach, right, which is really analytics driven. And but when you think about sustainability, right, and this is true for corporate, for whatever brand you are, and it's true for us as well as a company, right? The first thing you need to do is to engage your people, your employees, right? And if you do that, if you make your engagement score of people bigger, we know that there is a direct correlation with productivity and there is a direct correlation with profit. There you go, right? And for instance, at LANDOR Fitch, we trying to practice as much, as we preach. So we offered every single employee, because we have young people, many young people, right, who want to do good in the context of the job. We have that request coming out from the employee survey. So I came up with a project, which is to say, and the CEO of Jane accepted it, let's give the opportunity to each of our employees to spend up to 10% of their daily jobs, right, of their yearly jobs, on doing good in the context of their job. And that's, when you're a CEO, right, you need a good business case, because that's 10%, right?
Yeah.
The business case I made was not, this is going to drive, direct increase of sales or revenue. No, this is going to boost the engagement. And if you boost the engagement, then you boost productivity, and as such, it also boosts their reputation, because they're there to create good brands, right? So it fills up also reputation and the innovation pipeline. But I think that's a very important way to look at it. That's why when you look at sustainability, even for the Federation of Volleyball, we always look at how can we engage massively the people, because that's your first KPI. And that's a first quick win to drive profits.
Start from the inside and get that engagement and the energy there. Just conscious as well that, the conversation we're having around sustainability is in, such a fascinating region. Do you think, I don't know, Sue, do you think that there are specific challenges for sustainability that face the MENA region at all?
Yeah, I think there are. I think it's interesting that Luke was saying Sweden is the torture test of sustainability, and I totally understand where he's coming from. We sell a brand here, Arla Organic, and organic is about 30% of the market in Sweden. So it's not a small segment. We're operating around 8% here. So that alone gives you an idea that the region here is, and as Luke said, there's still education, there's still connection with some of these issues. I think the region's quite well connected with some of the issues, and COVID, we've seen in Kantar debriefs and whatever, that people are so much more focused on their health now, and healthy eating, nutrition, what goes in their body, and that's obviously happened in recent months. But things like animal welfare are still a little bit further away from feeling close to that issue, and there's still an element of depending on what age group you talk to, about the consequence of inaction. Is it really that harmful that I'm not throwing away my rubbish in this way, or I'm doing so a greater connection with some of the issues, which I think in Sweden there's a massive connection, and people are very educated and therefore very critical. They will find you out if you're just doing lip service, versus here I think our challenge is probably a little bit more around finding areas that people really connect with, and not conceptual areas. So I think if you're talking about CO2 emissions, I think people lose, well, what can I do about that really? But when you talk about good nutrition, or when you talk about, planting trees, and we've planted 90 million trees, you have to make it tangible and real for them, I think, in this region, for them to really connect with it. And to motivate them to be part of your journey, because ultimately sustainability, you have to be driven from the employees first, because if that doesn't work, then it's lip service.
Yeah.
But even if you achieve that, you then in the outside world still have to connect with your consumers so that they want to come with you, and that they want to be part of whatever journey you're starting. And that has to be done in such a way that they really feel connected, and kind of a sense of, I'm part of this particular journey. And that, I think that's done through tangible things rather than CEO. It was a bit like what I think Luke said at the beginning. There are some issues which are so global and so interconnected that, particularly in this region, people just lose that. It's too conceptual. So make it real.
Make it real internally, make it real for the consumers. And Antony, I suspect you're so linked with what's happening in the region. Do you think that there is progress in terms of this region taking things further and strengthening the sustainability journey?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I was going to jump in and say was that, you know, Expo 2020, or, you know, is obviously now in 21 because of COVID, but, you know, sustainability is one of the three, you know, key pavilions, along with mobility and opportunity. So sustainability was always going to be a focus for Expo. And I think that, you know, that, if you like, is being delayed is not a problem, because, as I say, in a year, you know, the way that the world is developing, you know, there'll be even more to talk about sort of in this time next October. So it's fascinating the way the world is moving. So, you know, the fact that the Expo is a year later will mean that there are going to be so many more innovations to talk about, that it's probably quite a good thing. Yeah. And anyway, that's already engaged people with the future, and there's already sort of you know, educational programs that have come out of Expo, and they've gone into schools and talked about it. So, you know, that's a really big focus for not just Dubai, for the whole region. And hopefully, you know, now that there is a vaccine, etc., and things are looking a little bit more positive for next year, that the whole world can sort of come out and celebrate, and that's going to be a real focus for Dubai as well.
Definitely something to look forward to. Now we've got some questions and answers coming in from the panel. I'd like to call on Matthias, if you're there. I wonder if you might just come on and ask the panel your question. A question from a different part of the world, I think.
Yeah, question for Antony. Thank you, Sophie. So I'm based out of Singapore, and you mentioned a few times that you see, driven by COVID, an increase in sustainability as a topic. And when I look around the markets here, I rather feel the opposite, where sustainability has actually taken a backseat because people are more occupied with making ends meet. You have a lot of day laborers, and obviously a lot of the markets I'm working in, they are the biggest ocean polluters because people are simply less educated. So the luxury of Sweden, being from Germany myself, I'm fully aware of what's going on there, but here I see it very different. So maybe you can share some examples of what you see happening, where we can learn from for this region as well.
Yeah, well, I think, I mean, certainly, I mean, bizarrely, talk about Sweden for a second. I've been approached by a Swedish company who want to actually buy our waste because they haven't got enough to drive their sort of waste energy plants and export good quality waste from here. So that's just a sort of sifting process. But we've just announced a big, well, it's Dubai municipality, but we're involved in the investment sort of strategy behind it. One of the biggest sort of waste management plants in the world, which has just started and broken ground. And that's going to take around 40% of all Dubai's waste every day, and will turn it into both energy, because it's built next to a water plant where they're going to have turbines that can drive and create power. But also it's going to have a waste, well, not waste, the product that comes out is a tile that you can use for roads and bicycle tracks and things. So that's going to be encourageable, because it's going to be used to build more cycling tracks, get more people out in the open, and really sort of have more of this sort of circular economy, which I think is what a lot of people are looking at right now. And I mentioned earlier about the organic and the farming side, and even vertical farming is also being looked at the moment here, so that we don't have such a huge fuel bill to bring in our products. But education, yes, we're doing as much as we can to educate people about sustainability, and everything from the school level to employees to anybody that works for us goes through sort of an onboarding process. So yeah, I think we're very clean in that area, and we're just trying to encourage, and it rubs off on more and more people around us and other businesses as well. But there's definitely a belief that, apart from the climate, which is obviously something we can't do anything about with the heat here and the AC side, more and more invested in solar power, waste management, and trying to make sure that people are aware of what they can do to help the planet at the same time.
Brilliant. Thanks, Antony, and thanks, Matthias, for joining us here as well. I mean, this is a huge topic for us to cover in such a short period of time, but certainly today already I've heard so many key takeaways for people listening in terms of the potential you have when you make this a brand-led story, the opportunities you have when you engage internally as well as thinking about your consumers, to use the frameworks that are there to share success stories, to inspire and speed things up, to collaborate more broadly. I'd like to ask each of our panelists, if I may, today, to just share one key piece of advice in the style of a tweet, a super fast, short, sharp piece of advice for everybody listening, to either give them optimism or give them something that they can take away from today to make sure that they're accelerating their sustainability journey and they're able to do more. Who wants to start? Sue, what have you got for everybody? What one piece of advice would you give everybody?
Okay, that's tough, but I will do my best. I will sort of finish with what I start, is as marketeers, our job is to have a point of view in the future and not to have a point of view in sustainability within that context. I find that almost impossible. So that's for me the context, and within that, I would say the two things I would focus on is belief and purpose. So it has to be something that you're driven from the inside to do it, and the people around you in the organization have maybe not the same opinion as to exactly what you should do, but they're equally driven in terms of the purpose behind the change that needs to happen. Sustainability ultimately is about change, because if we don't change, we won't be there. So the most important thing for me is this purpose, inbuilt purpose. And the second thing is make it tangible, make it real, make it credible.
Perfect. Yeah, it's easy. It's easy. Anthony, what about you? What one piece of advice would you give people listening?
I think get up early. I've discovered more about the world by getting up that hour earlier, because I haven't had to commute to work. Yeah, working from my bedroom, I'm just trying to use that commuting time to sort of just have a bit of time to myself. And yeah, I've been going out.
But you're saying get up early because there's so much to do. It's going to be a long day each day.
No, well, yeah, that as well. But you know, 5:30. You know, you see the dawn. It's an amazing time. I've discovered Blinkist, which is this sort of good advert for them. But you know, you can actually sort of listen to sort of as many as 3 or 4 books every morning, just summarized. So I've been discovering a lot about everything from Roman history to, you know, self-teaching to the planet. You know, everything's there. And no, I'm just saying, I think you've got to look in before you can look out. So yeah, be a better person, as Sue says, and try and let that rub off on others, and bring your passion into the workplace. You know, it's the only way it's going to happen is really be passionate, and that's like a drug. It sort of the enthusiasm rubs off on others, and the rest is history. Just start that. It's a ripple to start with, and then it becomes a wave, and hopefully it'll be a tsunami pretty soon.
And I love that important tip for those people who, I think a few people are doing that now, building back in your commute, which is time to be curious, to think, to listen. Just a reminder, all our Marketing Society webinars are available as podcasts as well. I know quite a few of our members are using that time in the morning to go for a walk and listen and to keep learning and hearing from each other. And Luke, last but very much not least, what's the one thing you would urge everybody listening to do as a result of this conversation today?
I as a tip, I would say, you know, don't care too much about your neighbors. Right? Do your own thing. Make sure you've got a purpose that is not a generic purpose, because I've seen many purposes that are quite, you know, dull and just satisfying. So make sure you've got a very differentiated and relevant purpose. Difference is key, right? And once you've got that, don't be afraid of engaging into sustainability. Just focus, right? Focus and own one thing to make sure that when you go home, right, and you talk about your kids, about what you're doing, they tell you, oh, I've seen what you've done, right? And don't spread, because spreading is the worst thing. You know, having small things here, small things there, nothing will stand out. And that's the big focus, right?
It's to stand up for what you believe, stand out from the others, and do things that make you feel proud. Right, so there's so much to talk about, and sadly we are running out of time today. Everybody listening, thank you so much for joining. There is going to be a very quick, tiny poll just about to pop up on your screen, so tell us what you thought of today, please. And as ever, if you have any comments, thoughts, perspectives, please come and connect with us on Twitter or LinkedIn, or talk to me on LinkedIn, or give us some feedback, because we love hearing from you. Thank you so much, Luke and Anthony and Sue. I thought that was a fascinating conversation, and we could have been here all day talking about it all. We will be sharing, everybody, we'll be sharing some of the perspectives as well and the learnings from today, so look out for that. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this is part of a mini series. So do join us at our London session, if you'd like, on Tuesday the 17th of November. Well, we'll be joined again by Luke, but also the LANDOR FITCH's London sustainability lead, to get a different perspective. Interesting to see the UK versus the UAE perspectives. And if you haven't heard already, we're very pleased to announce that the Marketing Society are launching our first ever awards for this region, the Marketing Society Awards GCC. These awards will be announced at our gala cocktail party after our Dubai conference on the 9th of November. Head to our website, come and join us for this. It's going to be a brilliant, brilliant series of stories and things to feel proud of. And nominations are now open for you to nominate your brand of the year GCC. So come onto our website, let us know. So many things to look forward to. Lots of optimism, not just from the vaccine, but from listening to great marketing leaders talk about how we can shape the future and make sure that it looks positive. Thank you, everybody. Stay curious, stay positive, and stay in touch. Goodbye.